Hello, hello. We have 1 second. I'm trying to hook up all this technology. Let's see if I can figure this all out today. Geez. Oh, geez. All right. So maybe I did all this right. Okay. All right, so I have 2 separate videos going on. I have one through YouTube, one through Facebook. I'm just, if the house blows up, tell them I had a laptop, a cell phone, iPad, and another cell phone all going at the same time. All right, so tell them if I get radiation poisoning, that's what it was as well. So let's see here. I know that there is a chat box feature on radiation poisoning. That's what it was as well. So let's see here. I know that okay. There is a all right, good, but it's weird that I can hear myself. So I'm just going to close that out. All right. So give it another quick second. I'm going to close all this. I'm going to try and monitor both chat boxes. So if you guys have questions, just let me know. And if I look crazy, it's because I'm trying to monitor both of these chat boxes. So let me put these aside because I'm just going to have to multitask today. Too much. All right, so we're going to get started here. Remember, today we are doing our box cake hack. So you should have that ready to go as well as all of your ingredients. I'm going to walk you through step by step. We'll talk a little bit about the different things that you can do to a box cake to enhance it, to give it that at-home flavor. And hopefully we'll have a great finished product at the end. Substitutions, I'll talk about them as I go along. And then we should be good to go. So first things first, your oven should be on 350. And thank you. Thanks, Apron. It's adorable. I've had it for a while. Little cupcake. All right, so your oven goes on 350. Let's get that preheating and ready to go. Make sure there's nothing in my oven because I am good for that. My water that has no water in it. Awesome. All right, next thing we'll do is go ahead and prepare our pan. So again, yesterday I left some suggestions on the different pans that you could use. I'm going to use the 8-inch springform. So again, it has the latch where the bottom comes out and I can just take it out. But I'm also going to put a round of parchment at the bottom of it. If you have parchment, great. If you don't, it's perfectly fine. Just make sure that you're spraying down your pan really good so everything comes out. Again, if you're using the 9-inch cake pan, you're just going to take some aluminum foil and make a little wall to go in that 9-inch cake pan to make the wall a little bit higher. All right, so get your favorite non-stick spray. I'm serious about my non-stick spray. So I have the grill one. Just don't ask, it's just what was in the store. If you don't have non-stick, you can go ahead and use some butter. Just take a little tab of butter, put it in a napkin. This way you're greasing everything. All right, so let's not kill self. So again, you want to make sure you get the sides, the bottom. If you're using the parchment, parchment goes in and you're spraying the parchment again. So we are making sure nothing sticks in this game. All right, and don't inhale the fumes like I just did. Woo. All right, so that can be put aside. I also now have non-stick all over my floor, so I'm going to die 1 second. Let's try to wipe some of that up so I don't die. Wouldn't that be funny if I busted my tail in front of y'all? It's not like it's something I wouldn't do. Can you make it a bun? I think that the only issue that you might have with making it a bun would be getting it out because of the crumble on top. But I guess if you took some extra time to, again, make sure that your pan was really, really nicely greased. And then maybe realize that you're probably going to have to take a little offset spatula or something to go around the tube, the inside of it, to make sure that it releases. So I don't see why it couldn't be a butt. You're probably just gonna have to take some extra precautions on getting it out. All right. Okay, so we're still going on both. Amen. All right, so the first things first, we're gonna go ahead and mix our cake mix. So we're gonna basically follow the instructions on the back. I did do a little bit of modifications. So you see on the back of your cake box mix, it says you need a cup of water, 3 large eggs, and 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. So again, to kind of enhance it and give it that at home, I switched it up a little bit. So I substituted milk for water, and then to add a little bit more richness to it, made sure that I was still putting that oil in there. So you have a combination of milk as well as the oil. You could sub the oil and do some butter in there too. Just realize that that's going to give you a more of a dense cake. So the more fat you start adding, the more rich and dense the cakes start getting. So that's some substitutions you could do as well. In terms of milk, your favorite milk. All right. So if you are a nut milk person, you could use that as well too. Soy milk. I have some 2% households. If you have whole milk, whatever milk you're going to use. All right, so let's open up our cake. This goes into our bowl along with the 3 eggs. Okay. All right, and again, we're making sure that we're cracking our eggs in a separate dish, unless you like crunchy cake, or unless you are that confident that you are not going to get any shells into your cake. So we have 3 large eggs. These should have been left out at room temperature. If for some reason you're just now taking out your eggs, if you want to get some hot water, not boiling, just a nice warm water, you can put the eggs in there for a few minutes and that'll take the chill off of the eggs. And if not, we're going 3 eggs, cracking them each in a separate bowl, going into our cake box mix. Let's open that up. All right, 1. Dose. And trace. Did I just get shell in there? No, I didn't. All right, 3 eggs down the hatch. I'm pretty sure I was using this bowl for something, but we'll find another. After that, we're going to add our 3/4 cup of milk. You want to make sure when you're measuring, you're on a flat surface. You can hold it up, but 9 for 10, it's not going to be measured equally. And so make sure on a flat surface, you're going eye level, and you're going to 3/4 cup. Yo, magical. Mark Harden had exactly 3/4 cup left in it. Magic. Into the trash that goes. And here that goes. And then we are going to do 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. Again, you're going down to eye level. 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And y'all know I have OCD, so you know I'm going to put stuff away as I'm going. Don't judge me, just love me. All right, and that goes in. Now, depending on your cake box mix that you have, whether it's the classic yellow, the golden butter, a white cake, whatever one you use, I like to add a little bit of extra vanilla in there. I like that vanilla flavor. So we're going to go about a teaspoon into our mix as well. And then you're going to take either a whisk, a hand mixer, if you're in a fan mixer, you're going to do that as well too. But you're going to get this nice and all incorporated and mixed up. What you don't want to see are any lumps. You don't want to see any dry spots. And you want to make sure that all of the batter is nice and hydrated. So make sure you're giving the bowl a little bit of a twist as you're going along too, especially if you're using a whisk, and it'll grab all of the batter off the sides. If you are using a hand mixer, you are a lot smarter than I am today, so yours will probably come together quicker. You don't want to over mix it, but again, you don't want to see any lumps in your batter. So just get it going. And then as you're mixing, you should notice that the color lightens up. And it starts to look, if you look at it, it starts to look like it has some air incorporated in it. And that's great as well too. Again, making sure that you're scraping down the sides, getting all that cake mix nicely mixed in. All right, I am good to go here. So again, we're light, we're fluffy, we're good to go. All right. All right, the next thing we're going to do is make our cinnamon sugar mixture. So there's a bunch of different variations of this, right? So when you're thinking the inside of a cinnamon roll, obviously it has cinnamon in it. But people do bunches of different things with cinnamon rolls in terms of what they put on the inside. So there's people who do pumpkin pie spice. There's people who will put the nutmeg in there, cardamom in there, allspice. Whatever your favorite spice mixture is, you're kind of thinking, again, warm spices. That's what we're going to go ahead and put in here. If you only have the cinnamon and the brown sugar, it's beautiful. But again, if you wanted to add some other things, you can do that as well too. So we're going to get our brown sugar out, and we're going to do 1/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar. So we're going to make sure that once we do our 1/4 of a cup, that our brown sugar is nice and tightly packed in our measuring cup. All right, nice, tightly packed 1/4 cup. I got a little bowl here. Down the hatch. All right, from there, you are going to do 1/2 of a tablespoon. Where's mine go? So say, y'all know I can't read them blind. 1/2 of a tablespoon of cinnamon. I'm gonna take the little top off of mine. If I can get the little top off of mine, y'all. This is what happens when you go live. All right, is this dry? Cupcake. My oven's ready. All right, it'll fit 1/2 of a tablespoon into your brown sugar. All right, again, if this is all you got, cinnamon, brown sugar, it is going to be delicious, nutritious, and ready to go. I happen to have a cabinet full of random spices just because I'm random. So I'm going to add a dash of cardamom. Cardamom to me has like a minty, earthy flavor behind it, but it's also very powerful. So if you're going to put something like cardamom in something, you need the smallest amount. And I mean the smallest amount because it can overpower. The next thing I'm going to throw in is I got a little nutmeg. So I'm just going to put a little dash of nutmeg in there as well. There we go. And then we're going to get a fork and we're going to mix this all together. Smash it up. Make sure you break up your lump. And you just want to mix, mix, mix and get everybody happy and incorporated. So again, it's the same process as if you were getting ready to put the brown sugar mixture into the center of your cinnamon rolls. Whatever your favorite spices are. Recently, I saw one of the chefs on TV do pumpkin pie spice. So when that was in fashion and everybody went out and was buying all the pumpkin pie spice and you got it left in your cabinet because they ain't crap to do with it but make pumpkin pie. You can put that in here. All right, so we're getting all mixed, all incorporated. All right, I think I'm all mixed up and ready to go. All right, good to go. Let's make some space here. All right, everybody good? Good, 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 good. You're good, you're good, you're good, good. All right, good. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and not kill yourself with scissors. And we're gonna put our cake batter in the pan. So we're only going to put 1/2 of the cake batter in first, okay? So you kind of want to eyeball it, but you want to get 1/2 of your batter in here. All right. And then I got a little cheat code, right? So somebody would say, get an offset spatula and make sure everything is straightened out. Do a little spin. Just don't spin it off the counter like I almost did. Let me move over here so you can kind of see. So I'm just spinning it. And it's going to evenly set itself out. So that's my little cheat hack of the day. If you still feel like it is not evenly spread, you can take a spoon. If you have a little mini offset spatula, you can use that as well too. And you just want to make sure you have a nice even layer down there. Back of a spoon, like I said, works perfectly well. You could probably get a butter knife in there as well too. You just want to make sure that this is as even as you can possibly get it. All right. And then we're going to take our spice mixture, and that's going to go all over the top. Get it nice and evenly dispersed. All right, and all of that goes in there. Do I have a towel? I do. Okay, so now you're going to take either a butter knife or a toothpick would work, a wooden skewer if you have it. But again, you can use a butter knife as well too. And you're going to swirl your cinnamon sugar mixture into the cake mix that you have in there. So again, you want to make sure you get it in there. Do all types of swirls. You will still see some cinnamon sugar on the top, right? So you're not incorporating it to make it like a cinnamon layer. So you don't want to stir it all so it's all incorporated, but you want to get some of it nice and good and down in there. So what winds up happening is you get a marble effect. So you get that nice cinnamon sugar rolling through the cake as well. So I'm going to show you guys what mine looks like. Waste no cinnamon sugar. All right. So again, I didn't go and make sure that it was all in there, but I did some good, oh Lord, I did some good swirls to get all of the cinnamon and sugar swirled in there. Okay. So you just want to make sure, again, it's not fully incorporated, but it's swirled in there. After you have that, sorry, I'm just going to level mine out because I tilted it a little bit. You're going to go in and add your remaining cake batter on the top. So what we're trying to do is sandwich that layer in the middle. So be gentle when you're pouring it over. This way it doesn't sink into it because we want to make sure that that layer is completely covered. All right. We'll just get that all in. And I'm going to make sure, like I said, I get all of it out of here. So make sure you're scraping your bowls, folks. You'll get dismissed from my house if you leave cake batter in a bowl. All right. So all of that is in there. Now, again, you're going to have to take your butter knife, your little offset spatula, or the back of a spoon because you want to get this yellow layer that you just put on there nice and smooth and level. All right, so we're just going to be gentle as possible and cover up that cinnamon layer that we just did. All right, and again, if you kind of poured everything towards the center, it makes it a little bit easier to push out. But just be gentle with it because, like I said, we're not trying to incorporate, we're trying to cover up so we have a nice, awesome streusel swirled middle. All right, make sure you're looking at the sides, making sure that we are nice and covered. All right. And I am good to go. How's everybody else? Do I need that? We'll put that there, just in case. Lord. All right, everybody with me to this point? Good. I can read one, I can't read the other. I gotta go in for the close. Oh, hey, Ron, I wish I could ship it to Maryland. You know, that's a common theme, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to like get Ebola and E. coli and Corona mixed in one. If I could figure out a way to send it, I would. I'll marinate on it. All right, so we should be all ready to go into the oven. Again, good. Everybody's good. Great. We're going to pop this in our oven and we're going to let it start going. So the first set of baking is going to be for 20 minutes. Okay. So set a timer, 20 minutes, and let that get going. All right, now you're going to grab your butter from the refrigerator. We're going to work on the crumble. All right, so you have a stick of cold butter. It can come straight out of the refrigerator. This one did not have to be room temperature. And we are going to cut this butter up into little cubes. Give me one quick second. A little warm in this kitchen. Make sure you stay hydrated at all times. Also, mason jars of life. All right, so get your stick of butter. Take that on out. All right, and we're going to cube this. So we're going to cut it into little cubes. So parents, if you have your babies doing it, make sure that you help them out. It should only be one stick. If I put 2 sticks of butter on there, that's my bad. You only need 1 stick of butter, okay? Because we're only going to make a small amount of this crumble to go on top of our cake. So again, you only need 1 stick of butter. All right, so what I like to do is take my stick of butter, and first I'm going to third it. So I'm going to cut this stick of butter into 3, okay? All right, so now that I have 3, so you should have 3 slabs now, right? And you're going to take that slab and half it. So now you should have 2. Then you're going to take this and you're going to put it into, I guess you could call this about 1/4-inch cubes. Okay? So this is what we're looking like. We want to cube that butter. All right, so you're going to do this for your stick of butter. And then I'm just going to throw it into a bowl just to have our tiny cubes there. All right, remember you're halving, and then you're turning those 2 sticks into cubes. All right, into the bowl. Make sure you kind of separate them when they go in the bowl so you have individual cubes. It'll be easier when it comes time to incorporate the flour and the spice mixture going into there. And so as you're putting them in the bowl, just make sure that they're separated. All right, last one. And cubes. All right, into the bowl. Nice and separated. I have to make sure I press start on that timer. I'm not used to using the timer. All right. So once you have this incorporated into your bowl, you're going to grab your flour. Your cinnamon should still be out, and then your almond extract. Again, you don't have to use almond extract. It's a very small amount that's going into the crumble. So you could actually substitute this for your vanilla, okay? So again, you don't have to use the almond. If you don't want to use vanilla, you don't have to use vanilla either. You can just use the butter and then the cinnamon that's going in there as well too. All right, so I'm going to grab my flour. All right, so I think what I'm going to do is make the mixture in a separate bowl. We're going to wind up incorporating it into our butter, but it just makes it a little bit easier. So you will need 1 cup. Make sure you are leveling out. Let me tell you, there's a bunch of ways that you could properly measure flour, right? So usually people go into their bag or their thing and they just dig in there and pull out flour. What that does is it compacts it. So it makes it so you think you have a cup of flour in there, but because you've smushed it down so much, you have more than a cup of flour. So when you see people that say in recipes, it says properly, a cup of flour properly measured out, this is what they mean. So you're going to take a spoon, all right? You're going to go into your flour and you're going to spoon, you know, make it nice and fluffy so it's nice and aerated and not compacted. And you're going to spoon that flour into the cup here, all right? And you're going to let it overflow because this is how you're going to make sure that you have a full cup. So once it's overflowed, you take the back of a knife or the back of a fork, something leveled, and you're going to level that off. And that is how you properly measure flour. You're welcome. I know, I've blown your mind today. You're welcome. All right, so that's going to go into a bowl. And then we're going to do 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. do I have another teaspoon? I do. All right, so 2 teaspoons of cinnamon are going to go into the flour. And again, for this crumble, you can take this moment to have your own creative liberties. So again, if you wanted to put the nutmeg through there, if you had that pumpkin pie spice and wanted to put that through there, you can do that as well too. Just remember, whatever you put in there obviously is what it's going to taste like. So if you wanted a contrast, if you had already put the nutmeg and the cardamom or the pumpkin pie spice into your cake, then maybe leave a couple of them out because what you don't want to do is overpower it. So I'm just going to leave it at cinnamon, and then I am going to use the almond extract because I like that little bit of flavor in there. So you're only going to do 1/2 teaspoon. If you are somebody that does not like the flavor of almond that much, then I would say go ahead and just do 1/4 teaspoon of it. You know, almond extract is, again, one of those extracts that a little bit goes a long way. So I like the almond flavor that it gives. So I'm going to go ahead and use 1/2 teaspoon. But again, you can always scale it down. But that is going to go directly into the flour. All right, then you're going to give that a little mix. So let's say once upon a time I had a fork. Give it a mix, get all the cinnamon and everything incorporated. All right. The next thing that we're going to do is this flour is going to go into your butter. So you have options again. If you're fancy and have a pastry cutter, that's one of those things that look like a torture device, a horseshoe torture device that you could like jab somebody with. You could use that to cut the butter in. You could use a fork to go through and cut the butter in as well too. You'll just put your thumb on the fork like this. I'm on 2 different sides. And then you would incorporate the butter that way. I just use these. Again, you want to make sure that you are not using like the palm of your hands or your whole hand, because there's heat in here and you don't want to melt that butter. So you're just going to kind of keep it to the tips of the hands when you're going through and incorporating that butter. Again, I like to use my hands. You can use a fork, you can use a pastry cutter, you can use 2 butter knives and just like taekwondo it as well. But again, I'm just going to use my fingers. So all this flour goes in, and then I'm going to start incorporating the flour into the butter. So a couple of things here. We don't want to fully incorporate this butter to the point where it completely disappears into the flour and we can't tell that there's actual little chunks of butter in the flour. This flour and butter, once it cooks, is going to make the crumble. So as you're going through and breaking up your butter into your flour, this is going to be a bit messy, but I'm going to try to show you guys. So I'm looking for pea-sized pieces of butter being incorporated into the flour. If there are pieces that are bigger, that's also fine, but you don't want the full chunks that we had in there. So you want to make sure you're breaking it down somewhat. But again, you're looking for, ooh, making a mess, little pea-sized pieces of butter in that flour. And it'll probably take you a second. But again, you want to make sure you're only using the tips of your fingers. If you feel like your butter has gotten too soft, put it in the freezer for a few minutes. Give it a chance to get nice and cold, and then it can come back out and you can start working it as well. So essentially, yes, the old version of you want your flour to look like wet sand is a thing, but you also want to see some pieces of that butter in there as well too. So again, I am just using the tips of my fingers, kind of smashing up the butter, flattening up the butter, letting it go, and then fluffing it into the flour. So I'm getting some nice pronounced pea-sized pieces of butter, but also I'm getting my flour hydrated with the butter too. I am also making a mess all over my floor. My cat will also appreciate that though. All right, so breaking up. So again, this is going to take some time, right? Because you got a full stick of butter that you're going through here. So again, if you're using your hands, make sure you're only using the tips of your fingers. If you are using the pastry cutter, again, you're going to have to the butter will probably start sticking all the way to the pastry cutter. So make sure you're cleaning off your pastry cutter to get all that butter back incorporated. All right, let me stop and show you guys where I'm at. Aside from being full of stuff. So I still got a ways to go. But you see, you don't want pieces that big, right? So I'm going to keep going. Pieces that are like this big are fine, but the full chunks like this, we don't want to see. Again, we don't want to see these full chunks. Little pieces that you have flowing through that are, where'd it go? There it is. That are like this. These are fine, but also you can kind of see it has like this. It's starting to look like wet sand, just like they say. So again, looking in here, let me let this one refocus. Oh, hi. It's starting to look like wet sand, but you don't want these big pieces, so keep working. Again, remember, if you're a hot hand person and you feel like your butter is starting to get way too soft, pop the whole thing in the freezer, let it sit for a few minutes, and then come back to it. And then, of course, when you're incorporating, make sure you're going down to the bottom of your bowl and bringing that flour that's at the bottom to the top of the bowl as well, too, because you want it to get it all incorporated. All right, I'm going to stop here. I think I'm at a good point. I have a few more 2 big pieces. Just going to roll through and make sure we're good. All right. So once you get to the point, again, it'll look like wet sand. You will also have some nice pea-sized, for some reason that word never comes out of my mouth, pea-sized pieces. Try it. Pea-sized pieces of butter rolling through your flour as well too. So we're going to take this whole thing and put it into the refrigerator until we're ready to put it on top of our cake. You want to keep this cold. okay? Because again, it's the same concept with pie dough, right? When you have it and you're always keeping those layers of butter that you just worked into the dough, you want to keep them nice and cold so when they go into the oven, they react and they give you nice flakiness. For this, you want that nice cold butter to go in there and be able to give you that good crumble. So while we were waiting, I still have about 6 minutes left on mine. I'm going to put this in the refrigerator. I'm going to wash my hand first because it's gross. All right. I feel like I'm looking for my tail. All right. In here somewhere, I can set this. I'm going in. Be right back. All right. Good to go. You want to take a peek at your cake? Awesome. Don't open the oven. If you have the light feature, just turn the light on. Make sure everything looks hunky-dory. You should have a pretty good rise going on in there. Wash my other hand. All right, and I'm good to go. All right, anybody have any questions? I'm going to do a little bit of a cleanup here, give myself a little space for our next part. Everybody still good? Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, get rid of some of these bowls. Stay hydrated. It's amazing. Move the dangerous weapon. All right. Everybody's got good crumbles and ready to go. Remember, as soon as you're done, that's going back into the refrigerator. You want to make sure everything stays nice and cold. All right. So while we are waiting on our timer to go off, let's talk more box cake hacks. If you're asking, am I rolling a chair in my kitchen? The answer is yes. I just rolled the chair into my kitchen. We'll see if I can sit in it because I might be too low. Oh, snap. I'm not. All right. Maybe a little too low. We won't do that. Sorry, chair. All right, so box cake hacks have been a thing, right? And I know everybody watching this is like, Nicole, you never use box cake. When people use box cake, you turn your nose up at them. No. My favorite cake for the longest, and every year that I would, do for my birthday, was the Duncan Hines strawberry box cake with the Duncan Hines strawberry frosting. That is what I wanted every year for my birthday. Still to this day, I always have a strawberry cake. Strawberry cake is the way to my heart. But people have been coming up with different ways to make box cakes. Obviously, they're cheaper. You can go to the store and get a box cake for about $1.50, I think. Sometimes they're $1.09, depending on where you're going. And you can have a good product. And you can also use some things that you have around your house to put more body into the cake, right? So we know when we make box cakes, they come out nice and fluffy, right? They're just the fluffiest things that we've ever had. If you go to a bakery, you notice that the cakes have a little bit more texture to them. Some of them might be a little more dense, a little bit more moist. And again, it's because of the different things that they've gone through and incorporated. I look like a crazy person because I'm going back and forth. All right. So one of the first things that you can do is add additional eggs. So every time we talk about adding eggs, full fat dairy, butter, and different things like that, you're adding more fat to the cake. So you're adding more richness, you're adding more density to that. So again, if you had a box cake, you could add one more egg than the box says to add more fat to the batter. Again, it's creating a richer, moister taste while also providing structure for a more tender cake. So that's one of the more simple ways that you could go through and do that, right? And then kind of how I talked about earlier, we could swap out butter for the oil that it calls for. Okay, so vegetable oil is a neutral oil. Yes, it's still fat in there, but if you switch that out for a nice full fat butter, then again, you're adding more fat, you're adding more richness to that cake. Yes, I printed notes. Somebody is proud of me. I don't know who, but somebody is. Again, one of the things you could do like we did today, you notice that our box cake called for water. Instead of water, I use milk. So again, the more richer you go in your milk. So if you're using skim milk, you'll still have some of that milk fat in there. But if you go straight up to whole milk, that adds more fat to your batter, and that helps as well too. If you were making a chocolate box cake, right, and you wanted to enhance that flavor, you could swap out that water for hot coffee, okay? Coffee, I'm gonna kill myself with this chair, hold on. I smell things. All right, I'm gonna pull on a little bit early because I think mine's baking a little hot, but I'm gonna come back to the coffee. All right. I know you guys' timers are probably still going, so I'll let your timers go off, but I'm just going to pull mine out right quick. Kill my timer there. All right. Again, chocolate loves coffee. Coffee will enhance your chocolate flavor. It's the same thing when you're making desserts. Salt. Salt will always enhance your desserts. So even if it is the smallest amount, you want to always make sure that you are salting your sweets. But again, if you were making a chocolate cake, you can swap out the water for hot coffee. It'll deepen the flavor. And then the hot liquid as well too. So the hot coffee will help balloon the chocolate flavor. So it's almost like you were making a pour over of coffee, right? They always say that you need to balloon the coffee grind. So you're doing the same thing with the chocolate, except you're using the coffee to balloon that. And then you can go crazy with mix-ins, right? I've seen people that do the white cake mix and they put orange soda in there. So it turns into an orange cake, or a strawberry soda, different things like that. They're using those enhancers to go into those cakes. Same thing if you have, jarred caramel sauce. You could swirl that through there as well too. If you didn't want to swirl it, you could use about 1/4 cup all the way up to 1/2 cup of that caramel sauce and turn your yellow cake, your white cake into a caramel cake. So you can kind of go crazy with the mix-ins. Same thing, you could add nuts, you could add candies to it as well too. So you can, again, take that plain box mix and turn it into something, doing it that way as well. So I'm going to take a pause for the cause. Everybody's timer's gone off. Have we hit our 20 minutes? Anybody still have time? These two chat boxes are wild. I feel like my cat when he's looking at like a bird or something like All right, timer's done. Someone, you still got a timer on? You still got time? Or is your clock done? Okay. All right, so your cake has come out of the oven. Done, perfect. All right, your cake has come out of the oven. It should still be loose, right? When you jiggle it, it should still have a wiggle in its jiggle, because it's not all the way done yet. You are going to now take your crumble mixture and put that directly over the top, okay? Again, this is why I said you wanted something with a bit of a high wall. So if for some reason, again, you were using a 9-inch and I asked you to create that bigger wall, this is why. But the whole thing should be able to fit on top. All right, if it goes down the sides, that's fine. But you want to make sure that you're spreading it all over. Why am I losing my voice? Awkward. All right, so I kind of just make a mound and then start spreading it over. Again, don't panic that your cake is still loopy-soupy in the middle. It's supposed to be. It hasn't had its full bake time yet. All right, you're going to get all of your crumble nicely incorporated on there. Don't push it down. Again, you're just making sure you're getting the crumble and you're covering the top of the cake so you can't see the top of your cake. All right, and now we're going to go back into the oven for an additional 20 to 25 minutes. So at this point, we're cooking the crumble on the top. We're finishing the bake of the cake. All right, back in, timer set, 20 minutes. I would say when you have about 5 minutes left on that timer, start checking it. This is a great point to say, make sure you know your oven, right? So if your oven runs hot, then you know that that 20 minutes may be cut down a little bit. If your oven runs a little bit cooler, then we know we may need a little bit more time. One of the great things that people always say is to get a little internal temperature monitor to go inside of your oven. Because you can preheat the oven to 350, but the inside of your oven may really truly be about 325. Or it could be so hot that your 350 is really 370, and you know you need to adjust that way. So they're really cute, convenient. They're about this big. You can hang it on the rack in your oven. I mean, you can always know where your oven is truly saying. All right, a couple more hacks I have for you guys for box cake. The other thing is, again, you want to make sure that you are whipping your box cakes at all times. So it's not one of those things where pancake batter, they say when you make pancake batter, it's okay if there's a few clumps still left in it because they'll cook out. Not with cake batter. So you want to make sure that all of those lumps are gone. You want to make sure that you've beat it enough. If you're using a hand mixer on medium speed, if you're using a stand mixer, again, on medium speed, if you're using your hands, medium speed, but you want to make sure that you have no lumps. It should be thick, it should be creamy, it should be light in color without any clumps of flour. All right. The next thing, if you are somebody that likes a incredibly moist, almost like, but people say cakey brownie, this is what I think about, right? So there's not a crumb to it, it's just thick. So if you are the type of person that likes that kind of cake, if you add sour cream or mayo into your batter, you will get that effect. I know you're saying mayonnaise, Nicole. Why in God's earth would you ever put mayonnaise in a cake? Let me tell you the magical things that happen when you put mayonnaise into a chocolate cake. It turns it into one of the most decadent chocolate cakes you've probably ever had in a while. So again, that space where it calls for oil is where you're going to do that substitution. So if your recipe calls for, if the box cake calls for 1/4 of a cup of oil, you're going to go 1/4 of a cup of sour cream or 1/4 of a cup of mayo. You don't taste mayo in your cake, okay? So that's something I want to get out there as well too. It's a fat enhancer. It's a moisture enhancer. You will not taste mayonnaise, but let me tell you, take that box cake and substitute that oil from some mayonnaise. I can almost guarantee you, you'll never go back to oil again. You get really fancy. You substitute the water for the hot coffee and then the oil for the mayo. Honey, magic. And this is another thing as well too. Pudding mix, right? So adding extra pudding mix into your cake, and you're not making the pudding, right? So you're not mixing up what the back of the pudding mix asks you to do. You're taking that dry pudding mix and putting that directly into your cake mix. Again, all the properties that pudding would have is going to go into your cake as well too. So you're going to get a nice richer, a moister, at points a fudgier cake as well too. And then the last one that I have for you guys, well, second to last. So if you're making a box cake and you're trying to work ahead, So you have some place you need to go on a Friday with your box cake. You can make your box cake earlier, and then you can use some simple syrup, right? Simple syrup is 1 part sugar to 1 part water. And when I say part, it's the measurement. So if you're only making a little bit of it, you do a 1/2 cup or a 1/4 cup of sugar, then you would go a 1/4 cup of water. Put that on the stove and let that go until you can't see the granules of sugar anymore. So everything, the sugar has incorporated into the water. That is called simple syrup. So if you're making a box cake and you weren't presenting it that day, you could put a little bit of the simple syrup on the cake, wrap it up nice and good to go, and put it in the fridge, and it'll maintain the moisture the next day. So you wouldn't have to worry about your cake drying out. You've added some extra moisture. When you go into the fridge, you have to think about all of the air that's going through there. Even if you are wrapping it up, there's still that chance of air from the refrigerator that's circulating around there getting to your cake. So if you put that simple syrup on there, that will help keep your cake moist. And then I think the last one is the most basic one, right? Everybody takes the box cake. If you wanted to make it feel like you did an at-home cake, make your own frosting. So that's half the battle. So you don't have to make a cake from scratch and a frosting from scratch. You can make your box cake and then make some of your own homemade frosting, whether it's standard buttercream. I am a fan of Swiss meringue buttercream, which incorporates egg whites and sugar. You bring those up to temperature until the sugar is incorporated to the egg whites, and then you beat butter into that. It's silkier, it's less sweet. I love it. Italian meringue buttercream involves hot sugar. So I would say take precautions when you're making that one, but that would work too. But again, if you make your own buttercream frosting or any type of frosting to go on your cake, you can elevate it that way. So those are my hacks that I have for you for your box cakes. Anybody have any questions? I don't know why I'm losing my voice. Yes, mayo and chocolate cake. I'm telling you, try it. Best thing ever. Even if you had a recipe and you were making an actual homemade chocolate cake, when you see that it calls for whatever fat that it calls for, so whether that's the whole milk, again, whether they're putting oil. So traditionally, you'll see a lot of chocolate cakes call for oil. Swap mayo out for the oil, and again, that'll give that more in-depth and richness for it as well too. And again, you don't taste the mayo. So try mayo and chocolate cake. I promise you, it's a good thing. Fruit or preserves? How about fruit or preserves? So I think you could use, if you had like a strawberry compote or something and wanted to swirl that through the cake as well too, you could do that. So it would be the same method that we did when we just put the cinnamon in there. So you put half of your batter, you do dollops of the fruit or the preserves, and then you swirl it around, and then you put the top batter. The only thing that I worry about if you just put it in there on the top is when the cake rises, that all of that fruit and preserves would melt out. So if you're hiding it in the middle and kind of doing a marbling effect, it'll all stay in there. The thing about fresh fruit, when you do fresh fruit, you have to remember there you're adding extra liquid. So I would just say monitor the amount of flour that's in there because you don't want it to be soggy. Fresh fruit gets a little tricky. Unless you're doing like a pineapple upside down, then it's on the top and it's meant to be that way. But putting fresh fruit through there can get a little bit tricky. But again, use the same method that we just did for the cinnamon one if you're doing preserves, and just swirl it in and that'll work too. I'm going to take a peek over here and see what we got going on. Looking good. And what you'll notice is that the top of this will get browned. So you'll notice the difference between the raw flour that you put on there onto what now this looks like is a nice crumble. So we're going to test it. My clock has about 11 minutes left. I'm probably going to let mine go about 5 more minutes and then start checking because it seems like my oven was running a little bit hot today. Anybody have any other questions? All right, let's talk toppings for our cake. I did a couple of things when I first initially did this test. Excuse me. Naturally, The cake that my grandmother makes, that coffee cake, it's just covered in powdered sugar, right? So the cake comes out, it's covered in powdered sugar, it's ready to go. That is one of my favorites. I went the next step and did a little sprinkle of a cream cheese icing. But what I found for that is that it made it a little bit too sweet. But I was trying to incorporate every aspect of the cinnamon roll into this cake. Now, if you are a person that has that sweet tooth and that sweet tooth reigns, again, you can make a small amount of cream cheese icing. You would really need, if you took half a stick of cream cheese, half a stick of butter, and then put a little pinch of salt in there. I'd say about a half a teaspoon of vanilla. And then you really shouldn't use more than a cup of powdered sugar, right? So I would start out in quarter cup increments and then whip that all. Taste it afterwards. And then you can see, since you made a bun, my crumble is going to be on the bottom, correct? Let me think about that. My brain. So yes, when you flip it over, your crumble would be at the bottom, unless you just flip it over and take it out and put it so the crumble side is up that way. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It should still sit that way. But yes, technically, your crumble would be on the bottom. So if you wanted the crumble on the bottom, since you made it into a bun, then again, you could either dust the top with powdered sugar to put a little decoration, or you can make a little bit of the cream cheese icing and put that on the top there, since it's not sitting directly on the crumble. So that would be a good idea as well too. But again, cream cheese icing, a small batch, half a stick of cream cheese, room temperature. Can't use cold butter, can't use cold cream cheese. So you want a half a stick of butter, a half a stick of cream cheese, a pinch of salt. When I say a pinch, literally just going pinch, a pinch of salt, about a quarter teaspoon of vanilla. And then start in increments of a quarter cup. I would say go to a half a cup, get that all incorporated, taste it. If you feel like you want it more sweet, put an additional quarter cup. But I really don't think you should use more than probably a cup of powdered sugar to get that consistency. It should be loose, but it should not be running. Okay, so you want to be able to, if you put it in a piping bag or if you put it in a Ziploc bag and snip the tip, it should be able to flow out. But again, for me, I just found it great to just have that little sprinkle of powdered sugar on the top. I left those as optionals. If you wanted to not put anything on the top of it and just leave it plain, that would be fine as well. So I'm going to check my cake, because again, I'm running a little warm. All right, I know I'm not there yet. Let's see what we got here. Wooden skewer, that's what I'm using. If you have a cake tester, you fancy. I don't have a cake tester. I have a wooden skewer. Or you could use a butter knife. That's what we also used to use in the back of the day. You want to make sure, am I feeding my neighbors or freezing leftovers? I usually freeze. I still have like a half of a banana bread in the freezer. I'm probably going to be bringing it all to my mother's house. Nobody tell her, but she's getting ready to get all of this. All right, so I'm just going to do a little quick test. I don't think I'm there yet, but I want to check it out. I'm definitely not there yet. All right. All right, I am not there yet, so we're going to still go. I got a little sinkage in the middle of mine. Perfectly fine. Again, we put something a little bit heavy, so it might sink down a little bit. It's fine. We just want to make sure, again, that it's cooked. If some of the cake batter comes on the top, again, it's fine. Once it all cooks, it'll all look the same. All right, any other questions about how long do I need to leave the cream cheese and butter out if I just took it out the fridge for room temp? I would say maybe like an hour. What you want to be able to do is when you touch it, leave a little bit of an imprint. Yeah, mine's not done either. Leave a little bit of an imprint. The same thing for the cream cheese. So it shouldn't be so stiff that you can't leave a nice imprint and feel that it's softened up. So I'd say give it like an hour. You can leave it by the oven, and that'll speed up the process as well too, because it's a little bit warmer. All right, any other questions? Awesome. So really, guys, this is the end of it, right? At this point, you're just baking your cake and making sure that it is done through the inside. So again, because ovens vary, your time might vary for mine. So you want to just make sure when you insert whatever tool that you're using, that it comes out clean. So again, I'm going to use a little wooden skewer. When I put it in and take it out, I should not see any batter. I should not see anything sticking to it. If you see something sticking to it, then you want to go back in. It should go in and come out clean. Can I do an episode on cheesecakes? Man, I promise you I'm not avoiding that one. So that one has been a request for a while. I promise you I'm not avoiding it. However, that one is going to more than likely be a video where you guys could just go and watch it, because a cheesecake takes about an hour to bake. And I don't think I'm that creative enough to spend an hour on the live with you guys. You'd probably get sick of me. So yes, there will be an episode of cheesecake coming out. However, I was thinking for something different. Maybe some people aren't sweets person if I did something savory. So we could do a savory episode too. Maybe something leaning towards the kids. We could do pizza pinwheels. So again, that involves a dough as well too that's laminated. It's almost like you're making cinnamon rolls, but on the inside of it is pizza toppings. We could do something savory. So I'll put a little poll out there at the end of this and see if people are interested in doing a savory episode versus a sweet one. And we can go from there. But yes, the cheesecake episode is coming. I will get to it. I have had the salted caramel one be requested. So I will get on it, promise. Any other preguntas? Bread, girl, you want me to make bread on here with you guys? Oh man. Oh, you guys want to see my baby? So this is my sourdough starter. I fed her this morning. But this is exciting for those of you who have jumped on the bandwagon with the rest of the world. You're welcome, Rick. Again, if you guys got to go, that's great. I'm going to be going myself shortly too. Again, remember, it just wants to come out clean. After that, you're good to go. You choose your topping. Powdered sugar. If you're going to do a little icing, you're good to go. So sourdough bread. This is my starter. I've had this starter for almost a month. Feed it weekly. You can see it's eating good. Got some nice good gas bubbles in there. Bread is a labor of love. If you follow me on Instagram, I did do a whole segment where I did the day that I was actually making bread. So it's a 3-day process to do sourdough bread. Regular bread, usually it's an overnight thing because you do want some kind of fermented starter to go into your bread if you're not using yeast. So yeast has become something that everybody all of a sudden has decided they wanted to buy up. The beautiful thing about sourdough is it does not use yeast. So you're making the natural yeast when you make the starter there. Again, it's one of those things where that might have to be a video recorded one too, or maybe I could do a Zoom bread session or do something a little bit shorter. But again, that takes time to rise. You have rising times on all that as well too. But I'll put a poll out. You guys let me know what it is that you want to make. And then we'll do some future episodes that way. But make sure that you tag me in your pictures of your finished product. When you guys are done, you can tag me on Instagram if you follow me. You can tag me on Facebook as well too. I want to see you guys' finished products. But that's what I have for you today. Again, remember, you're baking until your oven lets you know that your cake is done. You're going to put it on a rack and let it cool for about an hour before you take it out. Okay. If you used something other than the spring form, you're going to put a plate, put a cutting board or something on the top, invert it, right? Take your cake pan off and then put whatever you're going to serve it on the top, invert it again, and you should be good to go. All right. If you have questions, by all means, you got my number. You follow me on Facebook. You follow me on YouTube. You follow me everywhere. Send me your questions and I'll get those answered. But thank you guys for joining me. I know it was a long time, but again, I had to finish out classes with my students. They're taking finals this week, so y'all shoot out some prayers for these kids. And then next week is Mother's Day, so I may not see you. Maybe I'll convince Donna to do one with me. I don't know yet, but I'm going to see my mama. So you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you had fun, and I will see you all next time.